You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for In Between Drafts. I'm Travis Hymas, and our inflappable co-host John Negroni has departed for other seas, and I'll tell you about that a little bit more in a moment. But first, I'm joined here by Quinn Paruils, who has written for the anime section quite a bit. And if you've been listening to every episode, you'll know that name and you'll understand that there's a lot of lore to what we're about to unleash here, which we'll get into in a moment. But first, really quick, we're going to be discussing One Piece chapter 1102 entitled Kuma's Life. And this will be a spoiler-filled review. So please, if you haven't already, make sure you go give that a read on the Shonen Jump or Viz Manga apps. They're available for free for the first 3 weeks of publication, or you can subscribe for $3 a month to Shonen Jump, which we heavily recommend because it's just the best deal in digital comics. But yeah, before we dive into things, really quick, I just want to open this note here that John left for me before he departed, and he says here, "Dear Travis, I have become consumed by a desire to have conversations with our fellow One Piece fans, and I just don't know how to do that. So I'm getting on an airplane and I am going on a tour to find other One Piece fans around the world and discuss this wonderful manga with them." And for some reason, he sent this to me in a bottle. Like he stuck it in a bottle and then like had it FedExed because I live in Utah and there's no way to send it via sea. But John, if you're listening, we have a Discord. It's this wonderful app that you could just go into the In Between Drafts Discord server, and we have a One Piece spoilers channel right there. You could just use that. It's what I recommend. And if you need a link to that server, it's in the show notes below. So feel free to jump in on that. And if you're a little bit shy, you don't want to have a conversation with us over there, you also don't have to send a message in a bottle. You could send us an email at rookiepirateradio@gmail.com. And I'll say it again because someone's going to ask me to, rookiepirateradio@gmail.com. All right, Quinn, before we get into the main beats of the chapter, though, I want you to introduce yourself. Please, for the audience, let's get a little bit of a lore dump here on who you are, what you do with In Between Drafts, and why some may say that we've revealed you a little too early.
Well, yo ho ho ho. I am Quinn. Thank you for letting me on your beloved podcast. I've listened to so many episodes and I'm just such a fan. I think I'm kind of just, I've always said the ghost in the machine of In Between Drafts. My wife is Allie and she kind of runs a bit of the show, and I've known a lot of you guys for a while. I tend to I chip in on the game section and the anime section and the music section and pretty much all of it except film at this point, so it's kind of exciting to get to someday. I am a pretty recent One Piece fan as of I could give you the exact day that I got into it, but it's been about a year and 2 months. And my history with manga in general was just a little bit of Jump back in the day, but it was mostly just Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and just kind of the generic ones. And then I dropped off for a long time and started reading Chainsaw Man when the show got announced, and I did the whole thing in a day. And it was just so much fun that I was like, what could I do next? Oh, one that I can't do in a day. And I went for the longest thing possible. I think I had a friend that described it. I asked them what I should read next, and they said, haha, you could do One Piece, but I'm never touching Oda's Odyssey. And I've kind of loved that description of it because I think the Odyssey is like one of the best things in fiction. And I was like, well, might as well jump into One Piece. And I did the whole thing in about 2 months, kind of as a challenge to myself. And ever since then, it's kind of just become my personality. I live and die by the Straw Hats. I am going to be king of the pirates. So that's just a little bit about myself.
And I'm really excited to get to talk with you about the current chapter outside of our own chats. This will be a lot of fun. But let's go over what that chapter actually is. So this is the main beats for chapter 1102, Kuma's Life. The cover page is another fan request. It's Bonney eating hot dogs that are being carefully prepared by wolves. It's adorable, but honestly, we got a lot to get into, so I'm just going to hit it. So we open with the Bonney pirates arriving on a certain island with her crew noting that this must be where Kuma is hiding. Reminding them that they need to call her captain, as she is now posing as her more familiar age to us, they disembark and Marines call the crew scum as they leave behind only injured seniors and babies wherever they go. And then Bonney does the same thing to them. Kuma is on the island, but hears the ruckus and paws away, mentally urging her to not seek him out and questioning her choice to become a pirate. Setting sail again, Bonney expresses continued frustration at another dead end and is told that the search will likely take some time, especially with their status as pirates. Bonney then decides that they should also seek out the sun god Nika, so that when Kuma is found, she can gloat about where they found Nika. And right on cue, the chapter transitions to Luffy, now with his first bounty following his defeat of Arlong. We cut to Dragon, who accurately predicts Luffy's next stop and begins to depart, with Sabo asking why Loketown, and Dragon tries to throw him off the scent by asking who is stationed there, cutting us over to Smoker looking at the wanted poster as well. Parallel to Sabo's panel in the chapter is Ace, showing off Luffy proudly to Jinbei, who expresses abject shock that such a boy could defeat Arlong. Kuma too reacts to Luffy's new bounty, noting the irony of both his and Dragon's children becoming pirates. Returning to Bonney, she establishes the rules for the crew: steal whatever you want, but only from bad guys. And also, help no one unless they really need it. Bonney also establishes her look as we know it. As predicted before, the ring that she has under her eye is there to replace the jewel that was previously on her face so that her father will recognize her. Her lipstick is also a choice made to make her look more mature, and of course, the rest of the crew are a bunch of burly fishermen, so they are just kind of like, yeah, that's how lipstick works, sure. She then resolves to become famous so that Kuma will know that she's out there and ready to be reunited. We cut then to shortly after the events of Enies Lobby. Kuma is on Egghead for his next upgrade and observes the pacifistas in progress, calling it eerie when he realizes just how much like him they look. Vegapunk mentions that the progress on them is going just as well as his own, before mentioning Luffy's actions at Enies Lobby, prompting Kuma to reveal Luffy's parentage, noting that it doesn't really matter because Vegapunk is going to see Kuma's memories anyway, so he might as well come clean now. Vegapunk is shocked, and Kuma then notes the circumstances of a man with the power of rubber standing up to fight the government, just like the sun god Nika. Time moves forward again to Kuma's arrival on Thriller Bark, showing his power against the Straw Hats as they refuse to surrender Luffy to him, which leads to, as we all know, nothing happening whatsoever. But also, Kuma notes that the amount of force that Zoro took in that moment might have been enough to knock himself out, so have fun with that, power scalers. Kuma departs, observing that Luffy has exceptional friends, which makes sense, being Monkey D. Dragon's son. Time jumps again to Sabaody, as Kuma receives his summons to arrive at Marineford for Ace's execution. But before departing, he decides that since this is going to be the last time he has the opportunity, he's going to sneak a peek at Bonney as we see her in her first introduction on Sabaody all those years ago, now with the context of Kuma watching from a window. He says farewell to her in his mind and is proud of the rugged pirate that she's become. But before he can depart, his attention is drawn to a commotion outside the human auction house, where, of course, Luffy has delivered the most satisfying punch in all of One Piece. Kuma is in awe at the crew's audacity, as the chapter reminds us that Usopp also assaulted a celestial dragon, albeit by accident. The Straw Hats have done something that no one has done in centuries, all to protect a fisherman. We then see the climax of Sabaody from Kuma's perspective. As we predicted, he sent the Straw Hats away because they were not ready for the challenge of the New World. However, this is not done as a favor to Dragon, but because, as Kuma wills to Luffy in his thoughts as our rubber hero weeps before him, Luffy will someday be the man who saves the world. Finally, the end has come. As Kuma gears up for his final modification, Saint Saturn contacts Vegapunk and orders a self-destruct switch installed in Kuma's body. This way, the Gorosei can detonate Kuma should he turn against them, even without his willpower. To Vegapunk's credit, he tries to negotiate with Saturn to get clearance to install something that would allow the ability to switch between mental states as a way of affording Kuma just a little bit of willpower in exchange for this modification. Saturn completely shoots down this idea, reaffirming that he too is a scientist and cannot be befooled by Vegapunk's ideas. Kuma thanks Vegapunk for thinking of him, but that it is okay. He's made his peace. The two reminisce as they prepare, noting that they've enjoyed each other's company. Vegapunk confirms that Kuma will be sent to Marineford after this moment, and Kuma asks to have a mission programmed in following that one to protect the Thousand Sunny, the home of the Straw Hat Pirates, until they return. When asked what Kuma sees in Luffy, Kuma says that Luffy shakes him to his very core and then makes a shocking confession. Nika is just a legend, but it's one that Kuma passionately installed in Bonney. If such a hero were to exist, Kuma thinks that it must be Monkey D. Luffy. Kuma then extracts the memory bubble we've seen before for Vegapunk, noting that it doesn't remove his own memories, and that direct access will destroy the bubble. Vegapunk has already accounted for this, though, which will definitely not become a thing later on in the chapter, and it will allow him to peek inside as soon as Kuma places it where he needs. Kuma then sits back, and Vegapunk begins the final process. Kuma looks at the bubble he's just released and thinks on the life that he's had, and wonders to himself how much of a nuisance he was. The bubble glows, and we see a version of Kuma running as images of everyone he's loved call out to him, as Vegapunk's promise that Bonney will live echoing as he runs into the distance. Vegapunk grabs the final lever and weepingly informs Kuma that the only nuisance is his own death. Kuma is nothing but a hero, especially to those who loved him. Kuma smiles and thanks Vegapunk for this, leaving him with his final words, which hover as all of Egghead mourns and Vegapunk collapses with the final lever. Kuma's gratitude and final request fill our final panels as we return to the previous night on Egghead Island, Bonney weeping on the ground, thinking of those final words, as Kuma asks Vegapunk to wish his daughter a happy 10th birthday. And then it's holiday break for Jump. So, Quinn, first off, how do you feel about this chapter?
Well, that was a beautiful summary for an even more beautiful chapter. This is one of my favorites in, like, not like maybe the whole series, but just in a while. It is the perfect climax to the amazing flashback. And, like, every page had so much going on. We're going to have so much to talk about. I'm just blown away by this one.
It's kind of amazing that all of this just fits in. Like really at this point there's nothing that we're seeing that we don't already have a decent understanding for, right? It's not really a revelation that Kuma saved the Straw Hats purposefully, right? It's not really that shocking that, his actions at Thriller Bark were basically a cop out. Like none of this is too surprising at this point. But that's not really the point. It's really about like showing the end of someone's life, and that's kind of one of the things One Piece does best, weirdly enough.
Yeah, I always love that the flashbacks come at the perfect time to add to the story. I've seen some other shows where they use them almost as weapons, jujitsu. But here it just adds so much by, like you said, it's nothing new, but it fills in every gap around Kuma and, like, why he protected the Straw Hat ship and, like, his thoughts behind everything going on at Thriller Bark. And it was just, I don't know, I got so much out of it and it added so much to the story that we already knew, and everything just kind of felt like a cherry on top. And also, just, yeah, looking back on the end of his life and just being pretty happy that he accomplished everything he ever wanted to, which saving Bonnie is just so powerful.
That's a great place to zero in on, because I mentioned in our Discord, like, a lot of people are like, oh, he believes Luffy's Nika and everything, and that makes sense. The Nika revelation is just this fresh thing for us still. But I want to take into account that Kuma is in fact smiling as Vegapunk kind of erases what's left of him. He dies. Like, this is a death scene, right? Very very abundantly a death scene, and he's smiling. Now, of course, we all know that that means something. The people who smile as they're expecting death are a special kind of person. And I would like to posit that what is being communicated here specifically is not just that Kuma is a hero or that Kuma is a saint or that he's a good person, or even just the emotions of this moment. I think that this is very specifically reinforcing another kind of more recent thing that Egghead Island has brought to us, to think about, and that's the idea that someone can become a member of the D clan. So I would
Ooh.
posit to you Bartholomew D. Kuma right now,
Oh,
like as a concept,
it feels so
because
right.
that's what we've seen here. Like specifically, like a lot of people are like, oh, he's like his own Joy Boy, but I think like I want to go even more further into like the core of the series. Like this is the most D person thing we've seen in a really long time.
I absolutely agree with that, but I feel like even more so than like embodying the D, that Kuma is just the perfect example of how Luffy inspires people and just gets them to act in better ways and just unite themselves, which I guess might not fit perfectly because Kuma acted this way before he knew about Luffy, but I don't know. Like, are the D's the people who inspire, or are they the ones who are motivated to bring good into the world? I feel like Kuma fits all of that and is just kind of
I,
the saint.
I think I think the D's are people who live like this is of course the original question, right? What does that mean? Uh I think I think at least in this context, it's the people who live without regret. Kuma has he lets this happen with no regrets. And I do think that knowing that Luffy exists, like a lot of people were like, does Kuma figure it out? Does he know about Luffy's devil fruit? That's not the point. And I want to talk about that also on the side here, but I think that that does help bring him some sort of closure, in a way that like things are going to be okay. Like his daughter's not just going to live, his daughter might get to live in a better world. Like that's what greater peace could you give someone whose entire life now centers around protecting and making sure that this child survives. Like it is the right kind of closure for him, and I think that does give him that kind of peace. It's the same thing with like Ace's death, for example. Ace seeing the extent that people went to save him is itself kind of giving him the closure on his life he otherwise wouldn't have.
Very good point. Jeez, it's just I don't know. I just felt so much power in that, particularly the scene where we do just see Kuma's life flashing before his eyes and everyone that has loved him and that he's impacted. And you're right, that does just feel like the kind of thing that someone with the D, most of them that we've seen so far, just kind of do is live without regret and inspire others. And the amount of people that Kuma's lives have touched is incredible here. And just dying with a smile on his face just feels perfect for him.
Yeah, it's right, and it's I don't really in retrospect I don't want to say I predicted this because I didn't, but in retrospect it feels like it's the only way that it could have ended for this character. Um, in multiple ways. Whatever happened, this is kind of one of the things that's so incredible about One Piece is this shouldn't work. There shouldn't be the ability to introduce a character back when I was in like junior year of high school, tell us nothing about him, and just continually feed weird behaviors of this character, over the course of a few years, and then do nothing with that for a long time. And then all this time later, over a decade later, decide that now you're going to reveal their entire backstory and have that hit like a truck. It shouldn't be possible to do this, and yet this might be the best demonstration yet of Oda doing that again.
And it's perfect payoff, which my favorite thing about One Piece in general is like Water 7 onwards, it is just payoff constantly and everything coming back that you've already seen in ways you never expect. And I've always been kind of impressed that One Piece is always just smarter than you. Like you can't really predict what's coming. Like Kuma, you kind of can fill in some of these gaps and guess where his story's going if you tried really hard, but not like this. This is it like even though we knew all of this, it is just came out of a little bit out of left field because I think you guys have mentioned before that the worst generation was kind of just thought up on the whim because they were cool and he didn't have plans for them. And then all of us, we met Kuma pretty decently before that, but then you have Bonney as his kid, and it just adds even more and more to this perfect bow on top of just his story.
Yeah, you know, and it's kind of funny because not only were the worst generation something that Oda came up with kind of unexpectedly, less ad hoc, but the seven warlords themselves were kind of something that he added later. There was I think it was a color walk or something where Oda kind of noted that like originally the plan was get out to the Grand Line and do the Yonko. Like it was just gonna be that. And then he thought, oh, maybe we put a little bit of like a buffer between that. And that's more or less how we started getting the seven warlords. But even that, you know, even that stuff, you know, was back when Oda's editors were kind of able to influence the story, for lack of a better term. They could go, hey, maybe we do this, maybe we do this. Vivi, for example, famously was not a princess until Oda like did a sketch of her with her hair down, and one of someone else on staff was like, hey, that looks like a princess character, and he was like, oh, oh yeah, you're right, actually, and like roll with it. Like he's extremely flexible in his storytelling, which is wild for somebody who just makes it look like this has all been planned. There is no way when he drew Kuma at the introduction of the seven warlords, like the other seven warlords, there is no way he had this planned. It's literally impossible. But he's a really good storyteller, so he knows how to make it work, and it just shows at every step of the way here. It just shows. The panel redraws. I don't know if you noticed that the panel redraw with Luffy's first bounty. Everybody's in the same spot that they were when that happened. You know, in the very first saga of One Piece. Like he
That's
redrew it.
crazy.
It is. It's nuts. You know, the Thriller Bark redraws are a little less so, but I'm willing to forgive that if you are, because you want to have everybody in the panel, and you only have so much room to work with. Panel work also for this chapter. How awful is it and cold of him to put Sabo on one panel on one side of the page, and then put Ace on the other side?
Oh, got my heart racing.
Draws this line between them with the rest of the panels. That's so good. Oh, that's so good. I love that stuff. I also like the idea that Ace direct, like we knew that Jinbei learned about Luffy from Ace, but I like the idea that like Ace didn't really introduce Luffy until he was known to the world. I like that for many reasons. Um because it means Ace was like putting his faith that Luffy would make a name for himself first instead of just going around telling everybody that his brother's going to be king of the pirates. But it also means that like Jinbei's first mention of Luffy is his fight with Arlong, which is just so narratively relevant for Jinbei as a character too. And I love Jinbei, so I love getting some surprise Jinbei lore here. Someone's going to correct me in the Discord, I'm sure, and be like, "Oh, we already knew that," and I'm like, "I don't care, it's fine." Uh, I do want to talk about Luffy though, because Luffy has been kind of woven in and out of this flashback in interesting ways. And I really want to highlight how much I love that Kuma never realizes what the gum gum fruit is. I know that's been floated around, but I love that. It's everything that I could have asked for, because I've been really nervous about this turning into like a chosen one narrative, and I think stuff like this really, really helps to reinforce that the reason that this works, like the reason Luffy is a joy boy, or the joy boy, I should say, is because of who he is and chooses to be, rather than like getting the fruit or even like being destined to do it. Like that, I live for that version of the story.
I think that's so funny because I had kind that crossed my mind while reading it of just like, oh, he mentioned there's this kid with rubbery powers and like, hey man, don't you realize that is your hero? But that's a good point that this makes it much more than just Luffy kind of just being obliged to that just on the nature of his fruit or being chosen for it. So it kind of lends a lot more weight to his actions, and that's what inspires Kuma in the end to trust him is seeing him punch the celestial dragon and just take the actions that no one else will. So it gives him a little bit more agency there.
Yeah, it does. And Kuma confesses that like this man who's had this pious faith tied to this character, this figure, this whole time, and one of his final words is like, "He's just a legend. It's just a thing. It's just a story." That hits hard. Like, I'm probably be thinking about that for a while. Is like he never all those stories he told Bonnie, he knew it was bull crap the whole time, but it was for her sake, and I love that.
And it's his faith. It's just he believed that just having that as a symbol in his life led him the right way. It's kind of what you want out of someone betting on a religion, is to end up like Kuma. And he used it to inspire Bonnie, and then she became a nice rugged pirate. That was actually one of my, a little aside, one of my favorite panels is when he's looking through the window at her and he's like, "Oh, what a rugged pirate you've grown into." And it's just her like chowing down on a bunch of food. That really impressed him there.
Th- I mean, I love that panel because it's like it's giant heads coming through this window, and I did note this. I want to say Liam of Grand Line Review noted this. Um, the two people who see him in the window are the same two people who react to Bonnie eating in that same restaurant in her introduction panel. So like they just saw some of the craziest stuff they could ever see all in one like lunch service, which is just kind of funny to think about. Just like they're like, "Oh wow, look at this girl go," and then they turn and they just see this guy out there. It's just, this is one of those things where the anime is going to have so much fun with this. That I mean, for one, it's probably going to make me bawl like a baby
Oh yeah.
because they're gonna take that running scene and just roll with it. But like the fact that they're gonna get to go back to stuff that they've animated, and if I'm being honest, not necessarily all that well in some spots. They're gonna have a lot of fun with this. I think.
Oh, I can't wait.
Going back and doing stuff. So that's going to be fun. I'll look forward to them, restaging this little sequence pretty funny, with some new humor added. But really, I mean, if Kuma's looking through that window and he's seeing her just absolutely going to town on an entire restaurant, I mean,
That's the
he just
dream.
he just sees Ginny. He just sees Ginny at that point, right? Like her
Ugh.
will has lived on in Bonnie. Like, what more could you give the man?
Jeez, you made the thing I thought was funny a little sad. Now I have even more thoughts on it, so thank you.
Yeah, yeah, right. Oh, I mean, it's supposed to be, it's melancholy. I would say more than anything else. Like this is a tragedy. This is very much a tragedy. But again, Kuma's already made his peace with it. Like at this point, he's already made his peace with it. And then Saboti actually happens, and I think he goes from not just like making his peace, but like genuinely like, hey, there might be something I can do to secure the future, and it's like one last act of rebellion of his own.
Oh, that that does remind me before we leave Saboti here. My favorite part of all this, I think, might have been his response to Luffy saying he couldn't save any of them, which to me is one of the most powerful moments in the series. Is when he just has that little breakdown, and just Kuma saying that's not true, you're just not ready, is so incredible. Just because it's kind of what you were hoping after you find out that he defends the ship, and like, oh, maybe he was doing it just for their own sake and not like for the government to just kind of split Luffy up. But that just like knowing that Luffy did everything he could and he could have saved him, but Kuma made sure that it wasn't going to work out that way. Wow.
Yeah, that's a. I'm gonna jump around a bit based on that because this is something that's kind of floating around in my head right now. Um, so the final pages kind of confirm the obvious, which is that what we've been watching isn't actually Kuma's flashback, but it's Bonnie's flashback of going into Kuma's memories. That's why we get to see things that Kuma wouldn't necessarily know otherwise. And that reminds me, oh hey, what are the odds Bonnie actually shares some of this information with the Straw Hats directly?
Oh,
Like going back and actually telling them what Kuma believes in them.
depends on how the situation ends, but I think Bonnie's leaving here with them. I'm still not sold on Vegapunk heading out with them, but at least now Bonney has the vessel to pass all the information along to him. Even just a little bit more about Nika is going to be super valuable. So I can absolutely see this being how we further that plot along. It's just Bonney giving him everything she learned from Kuma here.
I would love for her to like share like all this touching stuff about Kuma, like telling them directly, like, no, he was protecting you at Sabaody. Yes, Frankie, he was protecting the ship. He was actually trying to help you. You're right, and all of that's fascinating. And then she starts talking about like Luffy's devil fruit and starts talking about all this stuff. And I would my in my head, he immediately checks out right after that.
Yeah, he's going to have no clue. And he's like, yeah, this is cool and all, but past is out the
He's gonna be
past.
like, she's gonna tell that whole thing, and he's gonna be off catching a bug on the other side of the ship, just completely. Like, I do wonder if at any point there anybody's gonna be able to sit down and explain to Luffy what's going on, or if he's gonna be just like, just tell Robin, she'll let me know if it's important.
He does seem
That's
to
kind of what he
like
does
Bonnie,
already.
though. He seems to like Bonnie
He
enough where he
does.
might listen to her. So I can't
He does. He
remember.
doesn't. He knows her name.
I
Like
was
he
about to
knows her
say,
name.
I didn't
I'm
remember
not.
if he knew her or
I
not.
Well, he doesn't use a nickname for her, which is very rare. He only does it for the people he likes. He doesn't get her name wrong. He calls her by her name. And he knows that like something has changed between you know the previous night on Egghead and current events. Like he's emotionally attuned to that. So these two have been kind of set up as these kind of like I hesitate to use this word properly, but like siblings almost, because like that carries a lot of weight here. But like, or maybe like cousins would be a more apt way of put it, because there's I mean, let's be real. There's a different reality here where like everybody's happy and Kuma has Bonnie and Dragon has Luffy and like they would know each other. Like there's that happy alternate universe idea and like their stories have been paralleling each other just like the brothers and like there's something there. Like I don't want to put on I'm not necessarily gonna like subscribe to John's Bonnie as a straw hat theory because I don't know. I don't know how I feel about adding straw hats anymore, but like there's got to be a connection here, right? Like there's a point to this that's still to come.
Absolutely. I've been kind of turned off by the whole idea of Bonnie and Luffy having like there's just been so many parallels to them that it has to be leading to something. Like even like they kind of nailed it home when she had the Nika arm in the last one. And it's just been like I don't mind the idea of a new Straw Hat. I don't want her to be like actually related to him, which it seems like might be impossible unless we really play into Luffy's mom theories, which John's
Oh
off
yeah,
this
no,
week, so
I
we're
mean
not.
like yeah, I totally mean in the found family sense of things, like again similar to like the relationship with like Ace and Sabo and the other members of the crew more than anything else for sure.
She could have just been the fourth one there. She kind of fits the gang
Yeah,
perfectly.
I mean he cares for his crew the same way he cares for Ace and Sabo, right? Like that's the idea. It's just with with adding a straw hat at this point, I'm I don't know how many arcs of One Piece we have left, but like anybody who joins up at this point, even with like the incredible flashback we just had, it feels like we're sprinting with them versus getting to spend time with them compared to the rest of the crew. Even Jinbei, like Jinbei joined late in the game, but the setup to get him to join the crew uh is years worth of work. That's what makes when he finally does so good. Like how do you top that? I don't know. And then of course after they depart Wano and the anime just did this episode, uh then he reveals the real dream to them, like the real objective at the end of this journey. And everybody's on the ship and everybody hears it. Like that really to me feels like the story cementing these are the Straw Hat Pirates. This is who's going to the end. Like I can't get over that. I'm open to it changing if Oda wants to change it up. If he wants to have fun and like tease us again about the dream, maybe that could be fun. But I don't know. There's just that sense of like it's complete. Let's start winding this down now that I just can't shake.
I think that's right, and I do think that introducing the Grand Fleet for them is kind of just how they get around that. Anyone that might have been part of the crew is now just able to slot into that as just part of his fleet. And Bonney will probably be perfect for that. And actually, I've heard some people say that about Kid and Law now that their crews are kind of out of commission, and I don't see Kid really
Oh,
jumping onto
yeah.
anyone else,
I
but
I 100% expect Law to make his way back to the Straw Hats. Maybe not like as a joiner, but as like an omen. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Uh, it's just,
watch
but
out.
maybe I'm wrong. He's also a D clan member, so like something does have to bring these people together. Side note, but jewelry D Bonnie, just throwing it out there. I mean, they already said you could have one if you want one, right? Like if Sabo could get one, everybody can. That's how I feel about that.
Saudi Bo, love that boy.
Sadipo. So before I jump to my next question, anything else you want to call out specifically here in the chapter?
Oh yeah, I just another little insight that doesn't really add a whole lot, but God, I loved it when Kuma was given the bubble to Zoro and he took the pain on, and even I might pass out from this one. What a great moment, because it was already badass, and now it's just like this. He trusts this crew with Dragon's Kid so much, and
We talked about it on this episode too. We were like, do you think like given the scale of that, like that's probably like really potent
yeah,
because we were trying to like scale it to Kuma's body earlier in the flashback and like I want to say that like that line about oh this might knock me out really is just like Oda just absolutely messing with people just
oh,
being like oh now you have to figure out how to give Sanji one of these bubbles to see how stronger he is than Zoro like that kind of thing.
oh
But you're
man,
right, it is, I mean that is one of the best Zoro moments in the entire series. It is like for one it's just cool as heck. It's still cool as heck all this time later that he just does that and never says a word about it, and like Sanji never says a word about it because they're bros. And so like to add that context of just like oh yeah Kuma the undefeated, like I think Kuma has the cleanest fight record in anybody in One Piece, and like he's like oh man this might actually knock me on my butt, and Zoro just stands there and takes it. That's good. I like that. I agree, that's a good moment.
absolute
It's a
legend.
great reminder.
And then
And it
yeah, my
Go
only
ahead.
other specific moment in this chapter, that page with Kuma running is just one of the best pages, like singular pages in the series for me. It just encapsulates this guy's whole life and everything he's been running towards, and I don't know, that one really hit me super hard.
I love that it's own like even in the moments where it feels like he like there's that moment in the middle where he stumbles in between Ginny and Bonnie, where it's kind of like signaling like he almost lost his way, and then
Oh,
Bonnie comes around and gives him purpose, right?
amazing.
But like it's not, Saturn's face doesn't appear there, right? Like their slave masters don't appear there. King Bakori doesn't appear there. Uh it is just the things that define him, and it turns out that the things that define him are just the people who he loved and loved him back. They're all saying his name, they're all saying it with hearts and with emotion. And Dragon is also there, like it's just so touching. And again, the anime is probably just going to take this and absolutely destroy our sinuses with it.
It's gonna look so good. You know what it made me think of was the the Trigun season from this year, the final episode when Bash is running during that amazing last episode. That's what this kind of reminded me of just Kuma running through his life, and just I bet this is gonna look so good when it gets animated. You're gonna have a lot of
Oh
fun with
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, that's a good connection. So that's a really good connection. I like the idea of him running too because he was always moving. Right? Like even when he was in the Sorbet Kingdom, he was always moving. He was always doing something. Um that it's just what we've been doing this flashback for weeks and weeks and weeks, right? And yet Oda just sums the man up entirely in one page. What an idea. What great structure.
And it's all nice things too. It's like kind of what we were talking about with him smiling at the end. It's just everything he's remembering there is all the people who love him. It's immediately followed up by Vegapunk just saying your death is a nuisance to everyone who ever knew and loved you, and hopefully that kind of sunk into Kuma, like that he believes it.
I like to think so. I like seeing Vegapunk absolutely destroyed about this too.
Oh yeah.
Like all of the crying in the end of this chapter is so just powerful, but like Vegapunk just like collapsing on the floor there, just absolutely distraught with what he's been forced to do here. Uh it adds something to him that I was hoping for, I think, is just because Vegapunk is weird. And like by design, right? But like Vegapunk is this weird kind of character because you have to take into like context, right? Like he looks like Einstein. He made a bomb. He made an island destroying bomb. This is a Japanese story. Like you can't undo all of these things, right? And I've been trying to get into Oda's headspace with who Vegapunk, the actual Stella Vegapunk is. Because like on the one hand, he's getting called out by Dragon. On the other hand, he seems like he's not really a joiner for the military. Then you have the Kuma stuff. But like here, I think this moment is just Vegapunk the man, not the scientist, just like even when he says like this is going to be quick and by the book, I'm a scientist, I think he's putting on a front. I think this is not him the scientist. I think this is this would be the part of him that he doesn't turn into a satellite, the part that you can't, the actual human part of him. And I think that that's a necessary thing to give us. And it does. I think it does elevate him quite a bit when you think about him telling Bonney, "Don't go in this room. Hey, I'm sorry, I can't tell you what's going on." Like it grants us a lot more humanity to him. That because again, like you said, I don't think he makes it off this island. It's going to be critical in making that hit harder.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point because it does kind of show Vegapunk is more than just living for science, which was kind of my original thought on him was just he's kind of the most morally gray character we've met in the series. It's off the top of my head, even back when we just found out that he burned down Punk Hazard a little bit. But this kind of answers that question of is he just going with whoever offers him the best opportunity to advance science for the world? Is he just doing this for the sake of the world? Because he never really stuck with anything entirely, but here he just cares about these people. And we haven't really seen that from him, and nothing we've learned about him before this implied that. So that was just powerful. Just his tears at the end are like almost as good as Bonnie's, but those are hers are too strong.
Yeah, holy crap, what
Wow.
a page. Like he had drawn that scene before, but I mean if you told me he never did, I'd believe you. Like just absolutely like again, crying scenes in One Piece are they're kind of like crescendos. Uh so they're meant to be memorable, but this one I think it's up there with like Robin crying I want to live, or Chopper at the end of Drum Island,
Oh,
like just one of those ones that's just gonna like sear itself into your brain forever. Which again kind of reinforces Bonnie as Straw Hat, but
yes,
let me poke holes in my own defense, I guess.
brutal. Oh man, I don't see
All
her
right,
joining the crew though. I
yeah.
can't really imagine. But
Would you be okay if she did
yeah,
though?
100%. I'm fine with more Straw Hats. The more the merrier. They have a great gang, and if someone could actually make their way into that and feel natural, I think she could. She can definitely get away with that. She kind of fits a lot of roles we haven't had so far. I know everyone's mentioned that they don't have a kid on their crew to kind of grow up alongside them like most of the other famous ones we've seen. And my only thing was that her job doesn't really fit anything, especially because she was already a captain, but I guess Jimbei was, so I don't know. It would just be kind of messy if she added on.
Just make something up. Like if they if that's the only sticking point,
But, like, I was pretty on team Yamato joining the crew until it happened, so it's like, I don't know what's going through his head. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if he's just still making it up week to week.
No matter
You
what, he's still
you know what I mean?
he's got us beat though, because I can't predict it anymore. Like there's a few things
Yeah,
earlier
right?
on, but like I just who knows where this is going.
Yeah, it's pretty buck wild. On that note, I do want to look a little bit towards the future. We do seem to be at the end of the flashback.
Yes.
Just to clarify for the audience, it is jump holiday break right now. So there is technically a chapter in production that's already ready to go. And they're to probably print it on the magazine this week, but it will not be released until the new year. This was the last chapter for the year of 2023, and what a chapter to go out on, by the way. That's something the Discord was noting. Hippo was noting in the Discord as well. Just what a great chapter to the end the year on, and it is. So we don't know what's going to happen next. I mean that. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, I don't know. I legitimately have no idea what's going to happen next." And I won't probably for a little bit. But do you think, Quinn, that this self destruct button and personality switcher is going to come back into play?
I mean, if they didn't, then what was that point there? Like, could you imagine introducing a self-destruct switch at this point and then just not following up on that? It's got to be how he takes Saturn down, which another jumping ahead there, but I really strongly think this is Kuma showing up and taking Saturn down with him, the self-destruct, like with a bear hug or something. That feels like what that was mentioned there for. The personality switch, though, I have no idea.
So this is where I'm going to start tinfoil hatting. We'll head towards the end of the episode here with this. Um, the personality switch, I'm 50-50 on whether or not it's in Kuma. On the one hand, it would explain some of his behavior. On the other hand, it doesn't explain most of it. And you would think if he did retain some of his will and could switch that, um, he would have talked. I guess is like the fact that like there's Dragon and Ivankov right there and they're asking him to talk to them and he's not, even though there's like not really a reason not to at this point. I don't know if that works. That having been said, I think we now have an explanation for the Seraphim.
That's fair.
I I think we've got ourselves a little bit of a trick that he pulled. And that I think is interesting. Because if he did pull that trick and got it past Saturn, if this is in fact we are heading towards the end of one Dr. Vegapunk, it would be magnificent to reveal that like he did in fact sneak this past this guy and it's in every single Seraphim and like you can't control them actually. Surprise! Like that would be so much fun. I think it would be a weird reveal because they like half the early Egghead stuff was like fighting over control of them, but like I would buy it as like a this is my last ditch like surprise for you because otherwise you run away with the world. Um and Vegapunk's blown up one island. Why not blow up another one with Kuma? I do think though Kuma too wouldn't be able to like grab Saturn and like initiate the self destruct, right? Because it's supposed to be something that they can initiate, and the entire point of it is so that Kuma can't do the thing that you're describing. So what I've seen kind of floated, and I think I'm leaning this way too, is that it's Saturn initiating the self destruct with the implication that he thinks he's going to get away. Whether he gets away or not, neither here nor there. But like what's going to happen is Saturn basically falls to his own hubris. Seems to be where we're headed.
Oof, that would be great. My other
Which
thought
is
there was just that Vegapunk also has control over that, and maybe the neural pathway is something also Vegapunk can only switch, the dual personalities, and he gets Kuma back when he shows up on Egghead. Kuma asks him to light off that self-destruct and kind of makes the choice, and like has Vegapunk do it with him. Could you imagine if it takes both of them out and that's like Vegapunk's way of paying him back too? Jeez, that would hurt.
I mean, at this point, I think whatever happens is Vegapunk, like the government cannot let Vegapunk get away. If Vegapunk gets away, regardless of anything else, it is a win for the Straw Hats, right? Like that's the objective: is get off of Egghead with Vegapunk, which subsequently means like the Void Century is exposed, for lack of a better term. Like this is make or break for them. Because Vegapunk, I guess we haven't really talked about it on the show in this context, but like if Vegapunk went public with the Void Century information, that's chaos in the streets immediately because he is credible. Like so many islands know about him, owe things to him. Like he's not just a celebrity, he's an authority in this space. So if he comes out and he says all this stuff, if he reveals all of these secrets, they're done.
Yeah, there's no real recovery from that, which is kind of why I've
There's
been
no real recovery.
leaning against
Like if
Vegapunk.
Robin, you can, and that's a part of what they did, right? Is they wanted Robin to be seen as a monster. They wanted to discredit her. They wanted to dehumanize her from the jump, right? And that destroys her credibility right out of the gate, publicly, right? And then you get Vegapunk. You can't do that. You're not going to be able to do that. Not completely. So they have to kill him. They just have to. That is the world government objective numero uno, more so than getting Luffy, more so than even getting Atlas off, I would say. I think they would absolutely make the trade if it was, we have to figure out how to make the resource again. I think they make that trade. I mean, they're potentially hundreds of years old already. What's a few more, right? Like
Yeah,
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. So whatever happens to Vegapunk, I think it is for the sake of Bonney. That just seems to be the right way to do that.
fair. Yeah, and I kind of lean towards that it's going to be him and Kuma together doing something that makes all this resolve here, because I just don't think things are going to work out if Vegapunk gets off this island. Like I feel like it's a little too early for the Void Century info to get out there, because then it's just how do we even move forward with that? Unless I mean we're at the end. So.
Right, because it's cheating, right? Because like Rayleigh could have told Robin everything she wanted to know,
Yeah.
but like I think she has the same mentality as Luffy. Like that, like what's the point if we don't figure it out ourselves? Like what's the point if we don't go find this stuff? If all those books do exist on Elbaf, I need to get to those books. I don't need you to give me a summary. I need to get to those books. So yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Man.
But yeah, anything else you wanna bring up, Quinn?
I think that kind of covers most of this for me. What a great package. Going back through all the events we've already seen and just adding flavor to it is so satisfying. And we haven't really done that too much before, I don't think, where we get to completely revisit events like this. So it felt great.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we've really done it this way. Like it's like Decks of the World in reverse.
Exactly.
That's fun. I like that. Well, Quinn, thank you for joining us here on Rookie Pirate Radio. I very much appreciate you taking your time and sharing your insights with us. And what a beautiful chapter to get to have you join us.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll see you in the Discord discussing things with everybody as well. But as for everyone else, One Piece is on break, so we will be back for the 1103 review, but we'll probably have another guest episode in between that. Still doing a little bit of scheduling and planning on that, but stay tuned. Otherwise, though, since we are going into the new year, I hope you have a happy new year, and let's all look forward to a really big 2024 for One Piece.